So I'm going to read chapters 33 to 36. I hope you enjoy. Chapter 33. What's in a name? It's beautiful, whispered the girl. Little by little, Elsie was gaining the creature's trust. At first, her hand only touched the end of the mammoth's trunk for a moment. The animal would retreat before the girl would try again. Then, as gently as she could, so as not to startle it, she began stroking the fur on its trunk. The animal pressed against her a little. Elsie took this as a prompt to continue, so she started doing longer strokes, branching out to pats on its cheeks. The animal recoiled. Elsie realised her hand was too near the mammoth's eye, so moved it further away. She even tried a tickle under the chin because stray cats always like that. And just like the stray cats, the mammoth purred a little. Behind Elsie, the two grown-ups were edging closer to take a look, the professor back in his wheelchair and Dotty pushing him. Neither one could believe their eyes. Extraordinary, muttered the professor. There's a special connection between them. Like me and my favourite mop, added Dotty. I think it just misses its ma, that's all, whispered the girl. Then she spoke to the mammoth. Don't you worry. I'll look after you. I promise. Although the animal couldn't understand the words, it did understand the feeling. Elsie spoke in soothing tones, and, with all the strokes and tickles too, the mammoth could sense the girl's kindness. This is history being made, boasted the professor. History, all about me, the greatest scientist of the age, nay, of all time. Dotty rolled her eyes. Here we go again. I and I alone have brought the dead back to life. I am the real-life Dr. Frankenstein, and this is my monster. The professor lifted his hand to touch the mammoth. Instantly the creature retreated into the darkness. It's not a monster, replied Elsie. She slid under the mammoth for a quick look. It's a she, and she's not yours. She's not anybody's. We've set her free. I don't care if this thing likes me or not. It seems awful calling it a thing, chimed in Dotty. She needs a name. Elsie and Dotty thought for a moment. Woolly, exclaimed the girl. You can't call it Woolly, replied the professor. Why not? asked Dotty. No, scoffed the man. It's boring. Far too obvious. It's like calling a dog Doggy. That's a good name for a dog, replied Dotty. I wish I'd thought of that. I'll call mine Catty. Heaven help us, said the professor. Well, let's vote on it, steamed in Elsie. Women don't have the vote, snapped the man. The girl grimaced. Not yet, no, but we can vote on this. How? He asked. Because I say so. Now, hands up if you want to name this mammoth Woolly, said Elsie. The two ladies put a hand up each. Looks like you're outvoted, Professor, sniggered the girl. Darn and blast, he thundered. What did you want to call her? asked Dotty. I wanted to name it after me. Many things are named after the people who made them famous. For example, the Wellington boot is named after the Duke of Wellington. Well, that's a surprise, mused the lady. The professor? asked Elsie, her face screwed up in confusion. No. The Professor Osbert Bertram Cuthbert Farnaby Beverly Smith Mammoth. That's a mouthful, remarked Dotty. No, it would take too long to say. She's called Woolly, and that's that. Not fair, he snapped. And don't try and touch her, Oswald Barnaby Custard Beatrice, whatever your stupid name is. She doesn't like you, said Elsie. Woolly! Woolly! The girl held out her hand again, and slowly the animal's trunk uncurled out of the darkness. She touched the tip and ran her hand down it again. She must be peckish, remarked Dotty. I'd be peckish if I'd been asleep for 10,000 years. Shall I make her a nice cheese and pickle sandwich? Mammoths don't eat cheese and pickle sandwiches, snapped the Professor. Ham and pickle? No, they don't have ham and pickle either. They don't have any type of sandwiches. Sandwiches weren't invented until 100 years ago. Sandwiches are named after the 4th Earl of Sandwich, whose idea they were. All right then, Brainbox. What do mammoths eat then? Pressed Dotty. They are herbivores, replied the Professor. Herbie who? Spluttered the lady. Grass, leaves, plants, and lots of them. Well, we'd better get her to the park then, said Elsie. The Professor shook his head. We can't take this creature outside into the world. Why ever not? asked the girl. Because it belongs in a cage. Chapter 34. Cage. A cage? Exclaimed the girl. You can't put Woolly in a cage. The mammoth must have picked up on the conflict between the two humans and hid behind Elsie. Hid as much as a mammoth can hide behind a little girl, which is not very much. Yes, a cage. It is the safest place for a dangerous creature like this, he replied. With that, he wheeled himself over to a spot near the main entrance to the hall and pulled a lever. A trapdoor opened and a huge metal cage rose up out of the floor. Clunk, clank, clink. The noise echoed around the hall, causing the mammoth to move further away into the darkness. With a huge thud, the trapdoor closed. Look, said the Professor proudly. I have food and water for the beast in there. He indicated 2 troughs on the side of the cage. It's barely bigger than she is, protested the girl. It will be safe in there. Trust me. Elsie was glowing with fury. I don't trust you one bit. That wasn't part of the plan. Did you really believe I would set this 10,000-year-old creature free to roam the streets of London? But For once, Elsie was lost for words. Dotty stood by her side. All this girl wanted to do was set Woolly free, she exclaimed. The monster is free, began the Professor. Free from the ice, free from the grave of history, free to live out the rest of its days in this cage. But it won't be free to see her. Oh no, I'll be able to open my very own prehistoric zoo, the only one in existence. I'll be able to charge a fortune, £100 a view. People would come from all over the world to see the monster. You're the monster, seethed Elsie. I would never have done all this if I'd known this was your plan. I assumed as much, child, which is why I thought I would keep this part of the plan a secret until you outlived your usefulness. Thank you, and good night. You may go. You can't do this to us, yelled the girl. I just have, was the reply. The Professor rolled himself across the hall to the cage and pulled out a handful of grass. He shook it in his hand. Come on, Professor Osbert Bertram Cuthbert Farnaby Beverly Smith Mammoth. Dinner time! The mammoth did not budge, and the Professor's face soured. From a leather pouch on his wheelchair, he produced a pistol. "Maybe this will persuade it," he said as he pointed it at the mammoth. Elsie stood right in front of Wooly. "You'll have to kill me first," she said. Chapter 35. Eternal Sleep. "Oh, and me," added Dotty, taking up a slightly safer position right behind the girl. "Why would you bring this beautiful creature back to life, only to murder her?" demanded Elsie. "This gun fires darts, not bullets," replied the professor. "They're tipped with a powerful sleeping drug that can knock an elephant out in seconds." "And what about a person?" asked Elsie, feeling more than a little frightened. The professor smirked to himself. "It would put a human being to sleep forever." "So, you're going to kill us until we're dead?" asked Dotty. "That doesn't really make sense, but in short, yes," he replied, now pointing his pistol straight at her. "You evil, evil man," said the girl. "Thank you," he replied. "If you have to kill me, so be it," said Elsie. "Wooly can't be kept in a cage for the rest of her life." "You can't stop me, child." "Maybe I can," said Dotty. The lady reached beside her for what was left of the hot air balloon's basket. With all her might, she shoved it across the floor of the main hall towards the professor. Whiz! He quickly spun his wheelchair out of the way, and the basket smashed against the wall. Doof! "You'll have to do better than that," he purred. "Much better." Elsie picked up one of the diplodocus bones that the mammoth had helpfully rearranged across the floor. "How about this?" she asked, wielding it in his direction. "Goodbye forever, urchin," he said, pointing the gun at her chest. The professor pulled the trigger. Pfft! Thinking fast, Elsie whisked the bone up to defend herself. The dart stuck into it. Twang! "Ha-ha!" said the girl. "Don't you worry, child. I have plenty more darts. Plenty more." Immediately he began fumbling in his pouch for another. This brought precious time for the pair. Elsie picked up one side of the balloon. "Quick!" she shouted to Dotty. The lady followed suit and they ran towards the professor and threw it over him like a huge sheet. "Whoosh! Get this thing off me!" he yelled from beneath the 1,000 silk handkerchiefs and one pair of ladies' bloomers. "Now, bash him over the head with the dino bone!" shouted Dotty. Elsie had never bashed anyone over the head before, and certainly not with a dinosaur bone. But there was a first time for everything. The girl rushed over and then stood beside the flailing figure, unsure what to do next. "Whack him!" ordered Dotty. Elsie did what she was told. "Donk! Oh!" yelped the professor. "Not hard enough," complained the lady. "Yes, it was," came a muffled voice from under the balloon. "Harder!" Another whack. "Donk! Oh!" "Still harder," said Dotty. "No!" pleaded the professor. "Third time lucky," muttered Elsie. With all her might, she whacked the man over the head with her bone. Donk! This time the professor did not cry out, but instead slumped in his wheelchair. Slud. "That might have been too hard," remarked Dotty. Elsie looked up at the massive hole in the stained glass window that Dotty had crashed through. The snowstorm had passed, and night was slowly becoming day. "We need to get Wooly out of here," said Elsie, "and fast." They looked around, but the mammoth had gone. "Oh no!" said Dotty. "We've only gone and lost her." Chapter 36. Missing Mammoth. You might think a mammoth would be too big to lose, but that was exactly what Elsie and Dotty had done. "Wooly!" called out the girl. I'm not sure she's going to come running like a dog, said the lady. She can't have gone far. Elsie looked at the floor of the museum for any mammoth footprints. There was a trail of them that went all the way up the steps. She's gone upstairs, said the girl. Oh no, said Dotty. I cleaned the upper floors last night. Why would she have gone up there? The lady thought for a moment. Maybe she wanted to see the butterfly collections. Elsie shook her head. Come on, let's go upstairs and look. Apart from the sound of the wind swirling in from the broken windows, the museum was eerily silent. The pair followed the footprints all the way up to the top floor, where they came to a stop outside the library. I didn't know mammoths could read, remarked Dotty. Elsie shook her head in disbelief. Where to next? Wow, this is the top floor of the museum. She can't have got all the way up to... Before Dotty could say the roof, there was a deafening sound from above. Crash! The pair looked at each other. No words were needed. Boom! Debris started falling from the ceiling. How do we get onto the roof from here? Asked the girl. This is the only way. Follow me. They scrambled up a flight of steps. Ahead of them they could see a mammoth-sized hole in the wall. A more mess, muttered Dotty. When they reached the hole, they saw the most startling sight. The mammoth was standing on the roof, looking across London's skyline as dawn was breaking. It would have been a magnificent scene to paint, but sadly there just wasn't time right now. Wooly! Cried the girl as she stepped out onto the roof. What are you doing up here? The animal chose to do the same selective hearing trick on Elsie that the girl did on grown-ups. She kept staring forward. What is she looking at? Asked Dotty. Elsie followed the creature's gaze. The Royal Albert Hall? Hyde Park? Lord's Cricket Ground? Do mammoths like cricket? Asked Dotty. I don't imagine so. No, hard to hold the bat with a trunk, she mused. What's beyond Lord's? Asked Elsie. She hadn't ventured too far out of central London. Hampstead Heath, replied Dotty. Beyond that? Highgate Hill? Beyond that? I dunno, I never did history at school. Geography? That neither. Elsie stood beside Woolly and patted her side gently. What are you looking at, my friend? She whispered to the animal, but the mammoth just kept staring straight ahead. She lifted her trunk to the sky and let out a mournful cry. Ooh! The girl wrapped her arms around the animal to give her a hug. The mammoth leaned towards Elsie and wrapped her trunk around her. Not too close to the edge, please, Woolly, she said, guiding the mammoth back. Dotty took a step forward. It's an awfully long way down, said the lady. There's the robber, came a shout from the ground. Elsie looked down over the edge of the roof. There was a whole squad of policemen looking up at them. And next time we'll read chapter 37.